What's up everyone, photographer Ronix from One Photography, and today we're going to be doing a skin retouching tutorial for this very image. And if I can guide, this image was taken by a photographer, is called Femi Flash, and I'm going to put his Instagram link in the description of this video so that you guys can check him out. He's an amazing photographer. So today's tutorial is about skin retouching in depth, and we're not going to skip any step for retouching this very image, and we're going to be doing color grading for this very image, and we're also going to be learning about the power of dodging and burning and the difference it adds to our different portraits in Photoshop. So stick around as we retouch this image, and let's kick in and restart by first of all defining frequency separation. Basically, what is frequency separation? Frequency separation is a retouching technique. It is simply a skin retouching technique that divides in the image into the high frequency and the low frequency. So the high frequency basically contains the skin textures, and the low frequency contains the colors and the skin tones. So that is what frequency separation does. So it helps us divide the image into these two layers, and when we get these two layers, that is the high frequency or the texture layer, it helps us edit that layer separately and perfect it, and also enables us to get the colors, and we can edit them separately in order to create a uniform image and a beautiful image at the end of the retouching process. So basically, that is the definition of frequency separation in retouching in Photoshop. So we're going to be creating these two layers, and when you create these layers, make sure they don't be different from the original background image. So let me show you what I'm trying to imply by the frequency separation group. All layers shouldn't differ from the original initial image. So you're going to come to this background layer, and you're going to duplicate it by just dragging to this icon right here twice. So basically, frequency separation divides the image into these two layers we have just created. So we're going to come to this layer, the middle layer. So usually our colors, or some people prefer to call it low frequency. I'm going to abbreviate that. So is usually the middle layer, and the upper layer, remember, textures or skin textures are always on top of the skin. So that's why the texture layer is just right above the color or the skin tone layer. So we're going to name the above layer texture, or we can name it high frequency. So when you come across these two terms, you shouldn't be shocked or worried. They still mean the same. So we're going to come to this eye icon, and we're going to deactivate it or uh, hide it. Then we select the color or low frequency layer. So what we are going to do, we are going to remove the skin textures from this very layer, so that we can remain with only the skin tones and the colors of this very image. So we're going to come to filter right above here, then come to blur and come to Gaussian blur. So when you click on Gaussian blur, that is uh, how your image will turn out to be. So come to the radius, and first of all knock it all the way down. So come to this zoom out tool and look for the area that seems to have more skin textures than the rest of the skin. So we are going to be using this particular area. So we're going to move this slider until we are seeing less of the skin textures. But as you're moving this slider right here, make sure you can still notice the edges of the eyebrows and other facial details like the eyes and the nose and the lips. So come and start moving this slider as you pay attention to the skin textures right here. So we want to move this slider until we are seeing no skin textures right here, but we can still notice the facial details of this model. So let's move until they are completely blurred out. So at around a radius of 8, you can see, we can still notice that these are the eyes, and we can still notice other facial structures So we're going to be using this radius because we can see we can no longer see the skin textures for this model. So we're going to click OK. So now, right now on this layer, we only have the colors and the skin tones for this very image. You can't notice any skin textures. Even if I zoom in for you, you can't notice skin textures. So we're going to come to our texture and high frequency layer and make sure we select it and click on this eye icon to bring back its visibility or make it visible. So this time around, we want to eliminate the color from this very layer so that you can have only the textures on the above layer. Like what we did on this very layer, we eliminated the texture so that you can remain with the colors and the skin tones. So for this texture layer, this time around, we are going to eliminate the color so that we can remain with only the textures. So we're going to come to image and come to apply image. So when you come to apply image, this is how your image will turn, and you get this little window right here. So remember, we're going to be subtracting the text. The We are going to be removing the colors from this image. So come and select this color layer, and remember, we're going to be subtracting the colors from the texture layer. So come to the blending option and click on look for subtract and click on it. So when you click on it, make sure you put these values. Make sure your opacity is at 100%. The scale is 2 and the offset 128. Make sure preserve transparency is not checked or marked, and mask is also not marked, and make sure invert is also not marked. So when you put in these values right here, your image will turn like this. As you can see, you get this gray layer that is going to be containing the skin textures, and you'll be having no colors for your image. So click OK. So when you click OK, you have to first of all change the blending option of this layer so that we can get back the initial image the way it was before. And the blending option that brings that back, you just come right here to the blending option where you see normal, and come and click on linear light. So when you click on linear light, you'll get back the way your image initially was before. So we're going to put these two layers in a group by selecting them. So click Control and click on the second layer, or you can just click Command and click on the second layer to select, and just click right here, drag and drop them to this folder icon to put them in a group. Or you can just select the two layers and click Control or Command G to put them in a group. So we're going to name our group frequency separation. So I'm sorry if I'm told I'm going really slow with this tutorial. I just want I want each and everyone to understand the different steps I go through when I am creating my frequency separation groups in Photoshop. So basically, we are done creating the frequency separation group. So I want to show you guys the before and the after for the frequency separation group. So remember what I told you. Your initial frequency separation group shouldn't differ from this background image. So let's click or hide the frequency separation group and activate it. You can see basically there is no difference between the frequency separation group and the background or our initial image. So open the frequency separation group. So first of all, when I'm doing a frequency separation, I make sure I create a black and white layer on top of the texture layer. So for this first step, we are going to learn about how to set up your mixer brush tool and the advantages of using a mixer brush tool before you can go to any other step for using your frequency separation. So make sure this is open by clicking on this drop down icon, and now select your texture layer and come to your adjustments and this time around create a black and white layer. So remember, when you're using a mixer brush tool, uh, we are going to be blending the uneven skin tones in this image so that they can have good and smooth transitions for this portrait. So, and in order to see those imperfect areas, come to the red channel and darken it or move it towards the left hand side. And when you do that, you see many areas right here are not having smooth transitions in the skin tones, and you can see on the forehead we don't have really nice and smooth transitions. So we're going to be using the Mr. Brush tool to kind of blend them and make them even or uniform. And when we are using that tool, we're going to make sure that we blend the midtones alone and the highlights alone plus the shadows alone, like I'm going to show you. So remember, the skin tones are usually on this color layer. So come back and select this very layer. Then you can go under your brushes, right click and look for your mixer brush tool. And if at all it is not there, so my mixer brush tool is under this option because I'm using an older version of Photoshop CC 2017. So right click and look for your mixer brush tool in this option. So my brush is right here. Remember, we are using a mixer brush tool, not a normal brush. So for the settings, we're going to come right above here. Make sure it is a clean brush. So drop down and make sure your brush is clean enough, and make sure this right here is checked. Like you're going to see, we want the brush to clean itself after each and every stroke we make when we are trying to blend the uneven skin tones. It's like when you're painting and you have your painting brush. Every time you're using it, you want it clean every time you're going to change or apply a different color. So you have to dip it in water and clean it and get another color and apply it on the image you're trying to paint. So for the wetness, you're going to be using a wetness of 9%, the load 75%, the mix at 90, and the flow at 100. The reason for the wetness being low like this, we want to retain as much texture, as much skin texture in this image, so that we have it in its natural way possible. So make sure sample orders is not checked because we only want to work on this very layer right here. So make sure your color layer is selected like that. So we're going to start blending and mixing those areas that don't have smooth skin tone transition. So like I told you, we're going to be mixing the midtones alone, the highlights alone, and the shadows. So make sure you don't drag from the midtones to the highlights. So let's do that in a bit. So let's come. You can see these areas that don't have as smooth as skin tone transitions. You can see I'm mixing them alone. Like we have a highlight here, so I'm mixing that highlight alone, as you see. So we are going to see our progress right now, because every time you're doing your retouching, you have to keep on checking on the progress for your retouching. So let's turn off the black and white layer to see our progress so far for this image. So click on the eye icon to hide the visibility of this black and white layer, and click on the frequency separation action group to turn it off and on to see the progress. So far you can see now on the forehead, with just a few strokes of the mixer brush, we have already created an impact on this image. So activate your black and white layer and now zoom in a little bit. And the other thing, you shouldn't zoom in completely to the image you're retouching, because you want to perfectly see those areas that don't have smooth transitions in their skin tones. So let's do this for the rest of the image. So we come to the nose area, and as you can see, we have some sort of shadow right here, and we are going to blend that. So we're going to retouch this image, and stick around as I'm going to share with you guys my trick for fine tuning and getting uniform skin textures for the whole image. Most people don't usually share their finding, whatever they find out when they are trying to do skin retouching. But in this tutorial today, I'm going to share with you guys a very important trick that is going to improve your frequency separation or skin retouching in general. So let's first of all blend, and the next step is where I'm going to share with you guys that important trick, which is going to improve your retouching game by a greater mileage. So let's blend. You can see we have this highlight. I'm just mixing there, so I'll skip. I have some sort of midtones here, and I'm just trying to blend them together. You can see the power of this brush, and like I said, always keep on checking on your progress by turning this off, the black and white layer. So let's see before, after, before, after. You can see right here we have just blended those uneven skin tones right here, as you can see in the image. So let's continue blending these uneven skin tones, and I will create uniform skin tone transitions for this very image. So let's do this right now. And when you're retouching, make sure you do take your time while doing this, because you wouldn't want to rush the whole process and end up having a cartoon like image at the end of the day. So make sure you're really careful with this very step, because it's going to determine each and every result for your portrait at the end of your retouching process. So basically right now we are trying to blend these uneven skin tones together, and it doesn't matter if at all you skip from one area to another, but what really matters is you have to get the job done at the end of the day. So let's get the brush and blend the neck area. And something I've noticed with most retouchers, they tend to leave out or forget blending these other areas like the neck and the chest area, yet they are also part of the portrait. So you shouldn't actually make the same mistake as a retoucher. So just come and blend those areas. So let's try to blend on the fingers or the arm of the model, and we blend them really well and nicely. And don't worry if at all you may have skipped out some particular areas while you're trying to blend the unevenness in the skin tones. So we're going to be adding some other second method that is going to kind of fine tune this image. So I think we are done blending the unevenness in the skin tones. So let's zoom in and we see what we have done. So turn off the black and white layer. So you can see this is the before after. You can see how the image has just been transformed with just a few strokes of the mixer brush tool. So what we are going to do right now, we are going to select the black and white layer, and you're going to drag and drop it to the trash can icon. The reason for doing this is uh, its use has been exploited. So select your color or low frequency layer, make sure it is selected. Come to your lasso tool and make sure you're using a feather of around 15 or 16 pixels. And for this image, I'm going to be using 15 pixels because we want a refined selection. So for this step, you're going to be selecting on the skin area and applying or fine tuning this image, and the areas we may have missed out when we are blending the skin tone using the mixer brush tool. So this is more of a fine-tuning step for retouching this very image, and we're also going to be color grading this image and doing some little bit of eye whitening and global dodging and burning for this image. So let's zoom in this time around. You're allowed to zoom in, so you can zoom in and now uh, get to this area of the skin. So make sure you just make a fine selection on the skin area and make sure you just select only and only the skin. You shouldn't select the eyebrows. Just make a selection on the skin area. So like you have seen, we have just made that selection. Remember our feathering is 15 pixels. So come right here to filter, then come to blur and come to Gaussian blur. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to move this radius until we see the skin tone that really works best for us. So we're going to move this until we can see the best skin texture for this image. So let's move this until we find a nice skin texture. So let's zoom out so that we can see the image the way someone is going to be looking at it from maybe their phones or any device they will be using. So let's click OK and remove that very selection. And like you have seen, if at all, you can see my feathering right here. It is not really a fine feathering. As you can see, these lines right here. So what we are going to do right now, we are going to increase on the feathering because you can see this very line where we just made the selection. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to come to our history and just go back like that. And now we're going to create a new feathering, but this time around, let's use around 20 pixels and make a selection on the skin area because we want to make this selection and don't have anyone to notice that we applied this method for our retouching. So come back to filter and come to blur and come to Gaussian blur. So like we had before, this was the result we had 27. So click OK and click on the space to hide that. So let's zoom out. As you can see, this selection is quite better. The feathering is quite better than what we had before. So what we're going to be doing, we are going to be applying this very effect on the rest of the skin area. But before we can do that, we're going to come back right here and select our lasso tool. So let's rewind everything. So here I'm going to share with you guys my trick I use for getting the perfect skin texture. So I'm going to come and select on the skin area for this model. Like you're seeing, I'm avoiding the hair and the eyebrows. So let me just make a rough selection. As you can see, I'm going to come back to filter, blur, and come to Gaussian blur. Remember the radius we first used was 8 pixels when we are doing the frequency separation. So what I found out is when you multiply 8 by 3 and add 3 to the value, you get the best skin textures for your images. So for whatever radius you may have used when you're applying the frequency separation group or when you're starting up or creating your frequency separation layers, just multiply it by 3 and add 3 to the value. So for this case, 8 times 3, 8 multiplied by 3, you get 24, then add 3 to that value. So 8 times 3, you get 24 plus 3, you get 27. So just put 27 and you'll have the best skin texture for your images. So basically, that is the trick I wanted to share with you guys. So let's apply this effect on and fine tune the rest of the image. So just right click and apply the effect on the rest of the skin area of the model. And what you have to do, you have to be avoiding the edges of the face because when you apply the area, it is going to be applying some kind of weird lines on that edge. So let's apply, and when you're making these shapes, make sure you make the shape according to that area you're trying to select. As you can see on this, you can see I'm making those shapes following that particular area or the makeup that was on the applied on that particular area. So right click and apply the Gaussian blur. So let's apply that on the rest of the model's face. So right now it's like we are fine tuning the areas we may have missed out when we were applying our mixer brush tool and blending the skin tone. So basically that is what we are trying to do. So this step is more of a fine-tuning step for the images using frequency separation. So I know most people tend to only use one frequency separation method, but I found out something a while back is when you combine the two methods, that is this very lasso tool method and the mixer brush tool method, it can really provide powerful and the most amazing results in your portrait. So let's apply it right there in the middle of the eyebrows. I think we are done applying that to the skin area. So let's see the progress so far. So this is the before after. You can see how beautiful the image is and how we have just transformed it to look this beautiful. So let's zoom in and apply the effect to the rest of the areas. So let's apply it right here on the arm area, and let's apply it on the neck area. So after this, we're going to be doing a little bit of global dodging and burning to add more shape and dimension to this image. Remember, when you're doing frequency separation, most of the time it tends to flatten our images. So when we add some little bit of global dodging and burning, it brings back the shapes and dimensions that may have been lost when we are doing the frequency separation. So let's see the progress. So before after. So right now what I'm going to do, I'm going to be removing these tiny stray hairs from the model and removing the pimples or blemishes from the images. So make sure when you're doing this, select your texture of high frequency layer. Remember, the blemishes are usually on this very layer. So come and select your spot healing brush tool or your clone stamp tool. And for the spot healing brush tool, it is going to automatically select for you or sample for you from a clean area. So you just have to dab over the blemish you want to remove, and it is going to automatically do that for you, as you can see in this image. And for the clone stamp tool, select it and just sample by clicking alt alternate on the keyboard to sample from a clean area and paint over the blemish, and you remove the blemish. So that is basically how a clone stamp tool works. And yeah, I don't want this tutorial to be long, so I'll be using the spot healing brush tool to remove these stray hairs from the image. And yeah, if at all you're loving this tutorial and haven't subscribed to this channel, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, because we keep on dropping uh, photography content and retouching content or tutorials for you guys to learn and improve on your photography skills. So it would be really nice of you if at all you subscribe to this channel. And yeah, it will be motivating me to keep on dropping content for you guys to learn and improve or better your photography. So I think we are done with the removal of the blemishes and maybe the removal of these tiny stray hairs from the model's face. So let's do this right here. As you can see, we are done with the face area. So you can come and remove these stray hairs from other parts of the portrait. So I won't do that because I don't want you guys to stay here for so long. So let's see a before after. I think I've done a pretty nice job. So what we're going to be doing right now, we're going to be doing a global dodging and burning before we can color grade this beautiful image. So for the global dodging and burning, basically it is enhancing the highlights and the shadows for our portraits after doing the retouching. So you're going to be using curves adjustment layers in Photoshop. So come to the blending option, not the adjustment option, and create a curves adjustment layers. So first of all, we are going to brighten. Remember, when we are dodging, we dodge the highlights. So we have to brighten that first layer because it's going to be brightening for us the highlights. So make sure this is selected the layer mask is selected, and we're going to first of all hide that effect for our dodging. So click Ctrl or Command I to invert or hide the effect. So you're going to name this layer dodge, and you're going to come and create another curves adjustment layers. And you know what to do this time around? Click on the midpoint and now darken. So make sure the layer is selected and click Command or Control I to hide that effect. So remember, when you're burning, we burn the shadows. So let's put these two in a group. Select the two layers, Control G or Command G to group them. So we're going to name this group Dodge and Burn. So I'm going to abbreviate that. So open our Dodge and Burn layer or group and select your burn group or layer. So come and create a black and white layer. Remember, this really helps us to show us where to dodge and where to burn. So remember what we did, just darken, and now that is fine. So come to the frequency separation group and deactivate it, because we want to see where the highlights and the shadows were initially for the image. So that's why we have to hide this frequency separation group. Come to your brush right here and reduce the opacity to around 8 or 9%. So let's just put 9% and make sure white is on the foreground like this. And if at all you want to toggle and get white on top, just click on these two arrows, or you can just get the default by clicking right here if at all you have a different color. So you're going to first of all dodge. So make sure a dodge is selected. So we're going to paint over each and every area that we feel like should have had a highlight in this image. So just come and dodge that area, and we are going to dodge right here on the hair because we had some sort of highlights. Let's come to the chin area and dodge. So we're going to dodge here too because we had a highlight right there. And let's come right down here and we enhance that area because we had a highlight, and let's do that. So let's come to the burn and now enhance these shadows in the image. Remember, when we are burning, we burn the shadows. So just come and paint over the shadows in this very image, and you can come and enhance these cheekbones. So you can continue doing this and take your time. So let's activate back our frequency separation group and delete the black and white layer. So let's see a before and after for our dodging and burning for this image. So this is the before after. You can see we have added shape or dimension to our image. So you can see a difference dodging and burning brings to your images. So you have to also apply it, this beautiful ingredient, to your retouching process. So what we're going to be doing right now, we're going to be color grading this image, and for the color grading we're going to be using selective color. So come right here and click on selective color, and this is going to be a default. So you're going to be adding cyans to the image. So when you turn this, you add cyans to the reds, and when you turn this up, you add greens to the reds. So we're going to be adding cyans to the image to around negative 12, and you're going to be adding, warming up the image by adding yellows to the image, and you're going to be adding some sort of blacks to the red channel. And as you can see, the image already looks beautiful and amazing. So what is left now, we are going to be doing a little bit of eye whitening for the model. So for the eye whitening, remember, so this is the image before color grading and this is the after. Before after, you can see what we did. So for the eye whitening, we are going to be using camera raw in the camera raw filter. So we are going to create a stamp visible layer on top of all we have done. So it's more of creating a screenshot for all we did. So click Shift Alternate Control E on the keyboard to create a stamp visible layer, and you're going to duplicate this layer by clicking Control J on the keyboard and make a copy of it, and come to filter and come to camera raw filter. So when you come to camera raw filter, we're going to be using the adjustment brush to enhance the whites or the white area of the eye. And if at all you feel it is okay, you shouldn't do this step. So click on your adjustment brush, and I'm using an older version for camera raw, that is 2017. And this is the adjustment brush. Remember, we have to remove colors from our image, so make sure the temperatures are at -17, the tint is at 69, and the highlights and whites at 5%. And now for the saturation, make sure it is way down or below to around -70. Remember, we are going to be removing color from the portrait, so come and paint over the white area. And I'm sorry if I told you had any noise. Some people are just trying to make noise right here, and they didn't know, like, I was busy with the tutorial. So let me continue whitening the eyes. So just paint over and only the white area of the eye to give it a more popping feel, so that someone who looks at the image is going to be attracted by the eyes of this model. So click OK right here, and the eyes will have been whitened. So this is the before after. And if at all you feel it is too much, just come and reduce on the opacity for the eye whitening. So for my color grading and eye whitening, I'm going to also create a group because I want to be orderly. So Ctrl G or Command G to group them. So we're going to name this color grade. So let me show you guys basically what we did for this image. So basically this was the image before frequency separation. So we used the mixer brush tool and the lasso tool method to retouch this image, so you can see before after. And we did global dodging and burning to bring back the shape or dimension to this image, so you can see before after. Then we also did the color grading and the eye whitening in Photoshop. So today's tutorial has been about how to retouch your images in Photoshop using frequency separation, and this has been an in-depth tutorial for retouching all your images in Photoshop. And this image was taken by Femi Flash, and I'm going to put his Instagram link in the description of this video. And I'm Ronix from Money Photography. Thank you for watching, and if at all you have this tutorial, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if at all you have just landed on this tutorial from this channel for the very first time. I'm Ronix from Money Photography. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in yet another retouching tutorial.